All righty. Well, welcome everybody. This is David Ross, Mental Health and Recovery Board Executive Director, and Dr. Ashley Ackerman. And we have a very, very special guest. Our keynote speaker for this year's Pat Risser RSVP conference is Brooke Siem.
Hi, welcome.
Welcome, Brooke.
Hi, everyone.
Brooke, I know you're going to love this part. I was going to read your bio because, who doesn't like hearing their bio read? So if that's
That's
okay,
especially when it makes so much sense.
it
It's
does.
very cohesive.
It is a very good bio. So let me read that real
No,
quick,
it's
Brooke.
not. It's not though. Okay, continue.
Brooke Siem was among the first generation of teens to be medicated with antidepressants. After spending half her life and her entire adult life on a cocktail of six drugs, she wondered, and I love this wonderment, who might I be without them? This is an important question. Unfurled against a global backdrop and her work as an award-winning chef, Brooke's story chronicles explosive and terrifying antidepressant withdrawal and the fight to manage the modern mental health system, all while demanding hope and forgiveness in the name of healing. Her work on antidepressant withdrawal has appeared in the Washington Post, New York Times, Washington Examiner, Psychology Today, and more. Her book may cause side effects, strategically placed behind me if you look closely, won the 2023 Best Indie Book Award or the BIBA Prize for Memoir and has been featured in outlets around the globe. So again, I did read the book. I didn't just read a summary or a Cliff Notes version for my older folks that know what Cliff Notes are. It was a wonderful book. I've said to multiple folks, Brooke, why I love it is I've read technical manuals from folks, but as you say, and you have a wonderful T-shirt that says, "I am not a doctor." Brooke is not a doctor, and but she speaks like so many folks speak that have been impacted, and I love that perspective, Brooke. I think that's what's going to make the conference so special this year is you speak in a way that so many folks like you. You're not alone, and you make this point. You're not alone in being impacted, even from an early age, from these psychiatric medications. So I just appreciate your voice. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm impressed with myself. I sent you the cohesive bio. Normally, it's filled with stuff about my cooking career, and people are like, "Wait, what? Why is the chef talking about psychiatric drug withdrawal?" And then I have to explain it.
Yeah. Well, we just want to tease the conference, which is on March 26th, coming up at Ashland, Ohio. If you want to come in person, you really need to register soon at our website, ashlandmhrb.org, or you can call us at 419-281-3139. I'll put all this in the episode description. But we have only a few spots left for in person, but we have unlimited spots. If you want to join us virtually, you can do that too. But wouldn't you want to see Brooke in person? Get a book because we're going to have her book there. You can get it signed, and she might even say something nice. I don't know. It depends on her mood.
You
But
know, I'm going to interrupt you for a second because I think the real draw
uh-oh,
for coming in person is actually going to be to see and work with my mother.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you said this, and I am very intrigued. And that was one of the other things. And we're going to talk a little bit about the schedule briefly. But yeah, Brooke is going to talk individually, but then she and her mom, Dee Barbish, are going to speak together on stage. And what was so intriguing about this to me, Brooke, was when I heard the two of you on, I think, a Mad in America podcast have that conversation. And I literally remember I was doing my normal, I tend to multitask, Brooke. You're high energy, so you understand. I'm high
Does it?
energy. I do multiple things and I stopped. I was listening to you and Dee talk and I dropped my pen. I said, "Oh my, this is not a conversation I've heard before." And it was a desperately needed conversation. What I've been used to is when parents make decisions for their children or child to go on psychiatric medications because they're underage, they do that and then they maybe regret that decision later on, but they feel like they didn't get enough information, so they just thought they were doing what was best. But nobody's really spoke to those situations before, and so yeah, that's one of the breakouts that you and your mom I think are going to discuss, and excited for that.
Yeah, me too. It's just my mom and I have now had about 20 years of hindsight, and adjustment in our relationship since the time that I was medicated. I was medicated for 15 years, starting at 15, so from 15 to 30. And there has been just such an evolution of our relationship to, because we had to. I mean, I think we're extremely lucky because I was medicated at 15 because my dad died.
Yeah.
And there was only the three of us in my family, so we went from three to two. My mom and I sort of had the unconscious choice to either go in the same direction together or to get at each other and separate based on losing my dad. And we chose to go together.
Yeah.
And so we've had this very close bond the entire time, but because of that, we've been able to talk to each other about the realities of medicating children and how that impacted my life, how it impacted her life, what she would have done differently, what are her regrets. Because I know she has some. I mean, but also at the same time, I can come at it with an angle of forgiveness because we do have a strong relationship. But we also notice that this isn't a conversation that's really talked about. You very often hear about it from one side, right? You only hear the parent talking about the reason why they medicate the kid, or you hear the kid talking about how pissed off they are that they got
That's right.
medicated by the parent. But nobody's really talking about how to repair these relationships or how to create meaning from them, or even just trying to come to a place of understanding for why each person feels the way they do. Because the relationship dynamic between a parent and child is always unbalanced. I think in the core of every child is just the desire to please their parents, even if the relationship is tumultuous. So that is a difficult thing to do when the parent consciously, unconsciously, even with really good intent, has effectively hurt their kid in a
Yeah.
very, very meaningful way. So, how do we bring that conversation forward? How do we make it easier for parents and kids to talk to each other? And frankly, how do we help parents, one, forgive themselves for the choices they made, but also give them more information around this so they don't have to regret a big decision?
Right. And
Yeah, as a parent myself, Brooke, I also I worry about making those kinds of decisions without being really informed. And I think hearing both sides of that perspective would be really helpful for, both the parent and the child, really. So I'm hoping we get a lot of different kinds of community members to come to RSVP.
I think we will, Dr.
Yeah.
Ashley, because I know we're going to have parents that have made that decision, and they're going to be listening to this conversation and then maybe walk away with a different perspective after it. I know they will, but nobody's really had this. That's why they're coming to the conference, because they have some mixed feelings. They've seen the changes in their son or their daughter as a result of starting one or more of these medications, and maybe they've tried to talk about that with the prescriber, and it's maybe they're not feeling like that's gone as far as it needs to go. So yeah, that we will have people in that situation, but also, as you say, where maybe the child has grown, it's been some years, and we've got some folks that maybe they want to repair that relationship if it is fractured, or maybe just have these conversations. Maybe it's that thing that we don't talk about, but that might be getting in the way of a real healthy adult relationship now. So, uh, audience, as you can hear, yeah, you're not going to hear about this. I mean, this is one of the things we do at the RSVP conference. We always try to invite speakers in that talk about issues that are meaningful, but you're not going to get typically from conferences that are much more focused on the medical model. And well, I'll stop there before I get myself in trouble. Anyway, so that is one of the breakouts. Would be Dee and Brooke having this conversation. But one of the things I think you're going to touch on when you do your keynote, Brooke, is your book. May cause side effects. And just a little teaser, maybe tell the audience what was the genesis for why you decided, I'm gonna put this into a book, because you spent a lot of time on this. I'm glad that you've gotten some recognition from the craft that went into it, not just the story itself, which is powerful, but you are actually an excellent writer. So maybe tell the audience a little bit about, why you decided to put this down and try to get a book out of it.
Well, the honest answer is I was unemployed and didn't have anything better to do and thought it would be a lot easier than it was. So I was just like, yeah, I'll write a book. I had had a literary
Everybody's doing
agent.
it. Yeah.
Right, yeah. I had had a literary agent from my time as a chef in New York City because I owned a bakery, co-owned a bakery, and we had put out a really beautiful cookbook as part of that experience. And my literary agent at the time sort of floated the idea of writing another book. And again, at the time I had just sold my bakery. I was about a year out or year into withdrawal. So I was starting to come on the way out of it. Or sorry, that's not my English. Well, it's early on this side of the country. Um, I was starting to come out of withdrawal, but I was still in it. And I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And when she said maybe you should write this book, I sort of said like, okay, I thought it would be pretty easy because writing the cookbook was pretty easy. Memoirs are a different story. And I started to write it. I wrote the first draft, which was horrible, and I knew it was really bad. But right about the time that I had finished this draft, I started to see more articles pop up. There was an article in the New York Times specifically that I still remember very clearly called Many People Taking Antidepressants Discover They Cannot Quit. I think that
Wow.
was April of 2018. And when that came out, I kind of said, oh, okay, this is not, I thought I was rare at that point. I thought I was a rare individual who had just had a crappy hand and was on one side of the bell curve and that most people didn't have this issue. But when I saw that and realized that this was national, major national news, I sensed that this is going to be a much bigger issue going forward. And it changed my purpose of the book. Instead of just kind of doing something to pass the time, I said this needs to be a, a capstone book. It needs to be so well written that it's respected from a literary perspective because it is very easy to get ironically bunched into kind of the crazies here. And when you're talking about this stuff, especially early, to be dismissed, right?
Yep.
And I realized that the gap was going to be extremely small, that I had to make sure that this was presented in a way that was sort of undeniable
Yeah.
from a quality standpoint in order to be taken seriously, since I'm not a doctor, and that it also needed to come with the backing of a real traditional publisher. This could not be a self-published book
Yeah.
because I needed as many institutions and legitimacy behind it, given that I don't have letters after my name. So that process took about 5 years, and I chose to write it the way I did, which was intentionally not self-help. It's not pop science. I could write that book. Sometimes I think about writing that book,
Yeah.
but I wanted it to be memoir for the reason simply because there is not another memoir on this topic out there. And the way I wrote it, you get into my head in a way that can help patients, prescribers, or parents, whoever it is, have a better understanding of what their person is going through and to do it without all the science in there. It was very important to me because if you're the patient or if you're just the person in psychiatric drug withdrawal, you kind of don't give a shit about the science. I'm sorry, I've already blown my swearing. You don't care about the
Right.
science
Right.
if when you're in that much suffering. It doesn't matter that some people can do this
Yeah.
and not have any issues, and that's not the point, right? The point is you are trying to explain this suffering so you are heard and people understand and they don't make it worse.
Yes.
And so I wanted to do that specifically from that narrative angle, and I think it's been very effective. I get
Yeah.
lots and lots of heartbreaking but also uplifting emails and correspondence from people. But I
Yeah.
still wish I could get it in the hands of every prescriber in the planet. And that's kind of like the long-term goal, but we're not there yet.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Well, part of what you've been doing since the book came out is, doing things like you're doing at RSVP. You've gone to a variety of different events. I've seen a few of them
Mhm.
online where you've spoken to various audiences. And
Yeah.
again, I know that we've had various authors on RSVP at the conference over the years, and I know sometimes it takes a while for the message to get out there. I know a lot of the folks are on a lot of different programs, and they feel like they talk about this, for so long, and so many people just don't know about it. But this is one of those things, Brooke. I mean, I hope you have the endurance for it because I think it's so important, but it is going to take time. That is the dilemma of,
Yeah.
for so many years, there's been certain messaging around prescribing and and coming off, which is so new, that it's going to take a while for, I think, the good word and the good information and the hope that you bring with your book to get out there. But it just takes time. And I know that's hard for people that maybe want to see that change quicker.
I mean, it's been 9 years, so, thing is, I have no idea where I am in the marathon. I could be doing this for 9 years and still only be a quarter of the way through. Who knows?
Right. That's right. Well, I mean, I hope that's a good tease, Brooke, for the folks that are coming. Not only will you get to hear Brooke and her mom, but she's going to talk about her own journey and her own book. And then in the afternoon, Dee's going to talk a little bit about a particular approach that she uses, and we have a couple other speakers, including Ron Bassman. I don't know, Brooke, if you know Ron, but again, somebody from that older generation, that psychiatric survivor movement from out of the 70s. And we've always tried to invite folks like that as well, because trying to remember our roots. Pat Risser was from that generation. And, these were the people, again, that had the insulin coma and the electroshock. Some of these really barbaric kinds of treatments in the early days, that really, because of their experiences, they were like, never again. I don't want this to happen to anybody again. So it's always nice when we can get somebody from that generation, because it's harder and harder, as you might imagine, to get those folks to come to conferences and to speak for all manner of reasons. So I'm excited about the entire day. So if folks have not yet signed up, do it at www.ashlandmhrb.org or call us at 419-281-3139. Now, Brooke, I know we said we were just going to tease this. Is there anything else that you'd like to say to the folks that are listening or hearing the broadcast today about the conference?
I'm not going to say anything about the conference specifically because I have not yet
Okay.
attended, but I will say that the thing I thought was in my bio that wasn't is the
Okay.
fact that I am a Food Network Chopped champion.
Okay.
My day job is a personal chef. I owned a bakery and I did all the restaurant stuff in New York, and now I'm a personal performance chef to pro athletes. I actually was the private chef to Joey Votto for many years, a Cincinnati Red. So
All
I
right.
only say that because people love Chopped and they love talking about that. So I am more than willing to sacrifice a few minutes of my time to answer very important questions about that. I cannot guarantee that I will bring snacks, but I can advise you on how to make some snacks.
Oh, I
And,
like that.
actually, I can talk about nutrition and its impact on mental health because I do that a lot too for, tie it back in.
Excellent. I like
David, did
that.
you tell Brooke about the mushroom soup at the conference?
Well, I'm afraid to tell her about the soup because she is so versed and she is a chef. I like to joke that we built a conference around a soup. I really enjoy the soup that they make at the conference. But see, now I'm going to build it up, and Brooke's going to be like, David,
Oh
that
no,
is like horse swill. That's horrible. I mean, what were you thinking? Why do you
we
think this
like
is?
it. I don't.
No,
We
I mean,
like.
only if you ask me for my opinion. Otherwise, I'll just be happy to be fed.
So I may mention the mushroom soup. I've done that over the years at the conference. I do like it, I have to admit, but I don't know. It's just me. Everybody's taste is different. But yes, we will have to include that because Brooke did win that. And again, if I recall, you were still going through withdrawal when you
I
like filmed that.
I was in withdrawal like pretty badly when we filmed Chopped. It was my episode was season 32, episode 6. And if you watch it, it's the editors were very kind. I
Yeah.
was worried walking out of there because I was very up and down, hallmark side effect of psychiatric drug withdrawal and antidepressant withdrawal is emotional swings. And
Yeah.
for me, I could go into, 40 different emotions in the span of, a day. Like it wasn't, some people have long windows and waves. I had very short ones, so I was just a little roller coaster all the time. So the whole day I was like sobbing, and then I'd be okay, and then the camera would turn on, and I would try and not be puffy, and then I'd be sobbing again. And I'm just very lucky that the editors, I think, liked me and took pity on me and decided not
Oh,
to edit me into a complete mess. I also wasn't confident in what was going on, and it was at the beginning of withdrawal, so I didn't know what was happening, so I didn't tell them what was going on either.
I
And
see.
in retrospect, like if I had told them, I kind of wondered if they would have edited in because that was what was going on. But that
Yeah.
wasn't the narrative that we chose. But I can see it now, watching back that show. I can see the struggle, but most people couldn't.
Yeah. I don't know exactly when, but there was this, well, I say great just because great in the terms of how impactful it is, of you like like sitting in a low boy freezer and the
Oh
look
yeah.
on your face. I think you were having
Who
a
didn't?
difficult, you were just trying to cool down. It's just a
Yeah.
great, the look on your face though is just like she's in the middle of something.
Yeah. That is unfortunately, during that time, I had a different cell phone. I had an Android as opposed to an Apple. And
Uh-huh.
somehow I lost all the photos that were taken during that time because I only had the Android for like a year and a half and then I got rid of it. And those photos never made it. And that bums me out because there was a documentation of withdrawal there that I don't have.
Yeah.
And that's one of the only photos from that time where I can really see what was going on.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I have it because it reminds me of how bad things were and how far I've come.
And how far you've come.
Mhm.
And that's just it. And so I hope folks have heard enough. And if you haven't yet registered, please do so. You're going to learn a lot from Brooke and all the speakers. And again, you just don't hear these kinds of speakers or messages as much. I mean, we're trying to increase the volume of these types of conferences and content. So please come out and join us in Ashland, either in person or over Zoom, coming up on March 26th. The price we've tried to subsidize it as much as we can. It's only $20 in person, $10 online.
Yes, that's
Come
so
on,
cheap.
people. It is,
Great deal.
right? So we are a governmental agency, so we try to make the price as reasonable as we can because we want the information. It's critical information. We want to get that out there to, as Brooke said, whether it's the families, those that are maybe thinking about withdrawal or have are going through it, the prescribers, the family members. There's a variety of audiences, which is the other thing that I'm excited about to get those folks talking about this important subject. So thank you very much, Brooke. We are very much looking forward to you and your mom joining us coming up on the 26th.
Yeah, I'm gonna say one more thing. So my mom, like, yes, we're gonna be having this conversation between the two of us, but
Yes.
another thing that my mom agreed to do, which is extremely cool, is when I was recovering from withdrawal, I used a particular form of counseling that's not particularly well known. It's called Compassion Key. And it's most similar to interfamily systems. If you had to make a comparison, it's a little different, but it's sort of like that in a way. And I ended up working with someone who really transformed my life. I mean, it was just so important. And my mom saw what had happened to me and how important this was. And she's just an angel. And so she actually decided she was going to quit what she was doing and change careers in her, she would have been in her 60s at this point. And so now she is one of the only 50 master compassion key practitioners in the world, and she specializes in supporting people who are getting off of psychiatric drugs and also supporting family members of people who are getting off of psychiatric drugs. And this modality allows you to work one-on-one, but also in groups. So she has agreed to do a group session while we're there, and so everyone who comes will be able to participate in this. And it's not something, don't worry, you're not going to stand up on stage and bare your soul. It's not that. It's a lot of internal work. But I think getting to see this modality and this practice from someone who is so experienced in this topic is going to be extremely special. I'm honestly not sure if it will ever happen again. And whether or not it's a practitioner or a patient or a family member, like it will be, I think it's going to be really powerful. And
That's
so,
wonderful.
certainly for $20, that in itself is
Yes.
more than worth it.
That is great. And again, I remember when we were planning for the conference, I know Dee wanted certain things for that session to happen that we'll
Yeah,
make sure that
they're
we have those.
accessories.
Yes, that's right.
I got all of it. We're ready.
We're ready. Well, let me stop the recording at this point.